welcome. We're going to discuss the state of Reforged, going forwards, plans to improve, and such. I'm joined by Luca, who is known as InsaneMonster, creator of the Re-Reforged campaign at the top left. And at the top right, we have Shadi from the Chronicles of the Second War team. And they're both developers with Reforged. They're very experienced with it, and they know a lot. So we're going to go over some topics today. And gentlemen, where would you like to start?
I would give Luca the introductory.
To
so
me?
go ahead, Luca. Yes.
What an
go
honor.
ahead.
Okay. No, first and foremost, I have to say that we are not here to discuss about any kind of community division, and I am actually firmly against any classic versus reforged division of the community. Okay, this is the first thing I want to say. I must say that personally, I'm quite a bit sad about all the bashing Reforged models and graphics in general has been received, is continuing to receive after all of this time. And with the recent news that Blizzard is coming to do something for this game, I mean, this is something we were long hoping for, but there is a bit of rumors and talks about what's going on, and maybe they could add some other kind of graphics, could ditch Reforged graphics, could just make a balanced patch and forget about the game. And we are here to speak on behalf of the user-generated content scene for Reforged. Okay, so this is the main goal. I think this is a voice that is not heard within the community, because usually the most important speakers of the community are not using Reforged graphics, nor are they modders. So this is something we would like to speak about. We would like to speak about what is possible to do with Reforged in general, and that's it, basically. Okay, so this is the introduction.
That's good.
Right, I guess it's my turn now. Hello, everyone. Hello, Richard. Hello, guys. I'm Shadi, spokesman of my team. Some of my team members wanted to join in the podcast, but unfortunately they couldn't. So I speak on behalf of them. I would like to thank Richard for the opportunity to let us shine important light on this matter, which has been, like Luca said, sadly overshadowed and alienated by the spokesmen of Melee community, who unfortunately don't play user-generated content such as mods, custom campaigns, or whatsoever. So I hope with this podcast that we share our voices as modders and developers, that so can hopefully Blizzard and the community in general hear our side of the Reforged development. So without further ado, we can start discussing the problems and the positive aspects of Reforged. So in short, almost 2 years ago when Reforged was launched, there was a massive backlash. And to admit, I was one of those people, even though that, just like many of you who were looking forward to this, to experience Warcraft 3 in a new light, new graphics, new terrain, new campaign and whatsoever. And I believe all of us were massively disappointed by the, lack of features and even cut features, lag, FPS, frame rate, frame rate, and technical issues in general. But what was interesting at that point, I think it was early 2020, Hive Workshop was reeling from the downfall of Reforged. To those people who are unfamiliar with Hive Workshop, it's let's say basically it's the Warcraft 3 champions for the modding community. So you have Warcraft 3 champions on the one side, which is the biggest hub for Melee, and you have Hive Workshop as the biggest hub for custom scene. So back then there was a huge backlash. Even the all the users were so against Reforged to the point that nobody wanted to try something, nobody wanted to try to make new models of Reforge or Terrain. It was just, they wanted to shove it to the corner and just be forgotten. But then my friend Eugene, which goes by the name of Templier, was one of the early guys who actually tried to do something Reforge related. So he started making custom Warcraft II buildings and sharing them on Hive. At first, people were sadly, antagonistic towards this. Oh no, that's Reforged. No, delete it. X, like absolutely not. We don't want any Reforged related content here. But slowly over time, when they saw his talent and the talent of my other friends and teammates, and with Luca, joined in with his Re-Reforged project, people started slowly warming up to the idea of Reforged. That to the point that said, "Oh, maybe it's not so bad after all." Yeah, maybe it was sadly cut and not developed, and it's not finished. Basically, that's the fundamental problem of Reforged. It's not. It isn't. It's not the problem that it's a bad game or bad graphics or whatsoever. It's the fundamental problem is that it's not a finished game. It was badly, left over and just released half finished. So hopefully, with Re-Reforged and CSW, we managed to, let's say, pick up the pace and pick up the record and show the people that Reforged can be salvaged and can have something good to be out of it. So, and for almost 2.5 years now, thankfully, we managed to do that.
That's fair enough. Yeah, so I want to say that obviously I've played both of your campaigns, the Re-Reforged campaign and Chronicles of the Second War. They both are really fun to play. There's a lot of heart and soul that goes into it, so these guys do work very hard. So this is why we need to consider Reforged as well as an option. Just to very quickly go over the somewhat heated debate. Like, this is another topic for another time, but there's the whole Classic versus Reforged, which was also mentioned. That doesn't have to be the case. I'm sure there can be communication with Blizzard to make sure that Reforged can be worked on, if not fixed, to be frank, going forward. Now, that's what we're going to try to work out as well at some point in the future, like this so-called news that we're going to expect to hear from Blizzard. That's really going to be like the gateway that lets us know, okay, so what intention do Blizzard have? Because that's what people are speculating at the moment. But for me, I quite like having Reforged as an option. I did actually enjoy playing the Reforged campaign. It had its issues, but I enjoyed essentially the different narrative perspective with all the different doodads, and for me personally, it was a nice, enjoyable experience, which I got to share with my fans. Obviously, we have the memes about the frame rate, the issues along those lines, but those are technically things that can be fixed. They're not fundamentally like just completely broken. They only are if like Blizzard just completely abandoned the game. But again, this news might come back. We don't know. So again, I've been enjoying the campaigns that you guys have created. So thank you very much for doing so. And I want to say, what do you think Blizzard need to do? Maybe just give like 2 or 3 points. If they were to say, right, we're coming back, we want to work on Reforged, what would you think is their kind of priority to help your projects sort of move forward quicker?
Luca?
So I think that the more option we get is the better, because many people say, I was reading the comment, by the way, in the meantime, and there are people who say SD Plus is better than Classic, which is better than Reforged. No, it's different. It's not better. Technically, it's worse. You can say that it's better for certain kind of things, and it's better from a one-on-one port perspective. If you take StarCraft Remastered or Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition, you can take a map in the original edition and then port it to the new edition, and it's the same. But this is not working with Reforged, because Reforged is not a remaster. Reforged is a remake. And so, because of that, we need options. The ideal would be to have a toggle system, just like we have the Diablo 2 remake. And on top of that, we need some kind of improvements. First of all, we need a bit of a better shader. I think the shader is not that bad. If you can play with the day-night lighting, you can change. It's a file. It's an MDL file you can set inside the game. You can achieve better results. I use it extensively in Re-Reforged. But still, a better shader, better line support, fixed animations for models, because models are good, but many are not finished. And above that, we need ladder, of course, okay, and we need custom campaigns with some optimizations. Okay, if we can make some optimization, I personally think, I'm an engineer. Okay, I've been working with Unity, I have been working with StarCraft 2, and I think for if we see how good Reforged looks from a technical standpoint and how well it runs also on all the machines, I think the optimization is quite good. Of course, it runs worse than Classic. I mean, the amount of polygons is not comparable by any means, and the same is the size of the textures. But it's very, very well optimized. The problem is that it's like an exponential. Basically, you have a good frame rate until you reach a certain threshold, and from that threshold on, the frame rate just drops. It's finished. The performance collapses. This is because the optimization, I don't know how the engine is written actually, but I think it's bound to how many stuff it's working on screen, and I think how many stuff is animated on screen. For example, I noticed that putting a lot of SD original models, classic models with animations inside a Reforged map, if you put a ton of models, for example, animated grass, then it will kill the game frame rate. But there is no polygons there. It's just 3 polygons. It's SD. So the problems it is with the optimization of a lot of animating parts. Because if you are placing static dots, like rocks and stuff like that, then it works fine. This is also the reason why if you animate the trees, actually the frame rate drops a bit. Okay, trees in Reforged should be animated. They are not because there is a bug, but this bug actually saves a bit of frame rate. I animate them manually in Reforged, for example, and so I lose a bit of frame rate. But it's quite well optimized. But yes, additional optimization and some fixes will be required. This is my go-to list, and custom campaigns, of course, is at the top of the list for me.
That totally
also,
makes
some
sense.
bugs, there are some really, really small bugs that could be ironed out, but I think this is a minor stuff that we could also live without. I mean, go ahead. Your turn.
All right. So I would like to say that I agree mostly with Luca with what he mentioned regarding technical aspects. For me, let's say our wish list, and not just our as my team, but also my personal wish list. When I see Reforged, being as a 3D designer myself, when I look at those models, whether they were terrain, buildings, units, or whatsoever, I really respect Lemon Sky designers for what they've done. I think they've been done dirty by the bad management, and it saddened me when the people, community started bashing them, attacking them for basically something that we're not guilty of. So like Luca said, the problem with Reforged models is not that they're fundamentally bad. It's the unfinished animations, and I think the biggest problem is the shading. The shader itself is not that good, sadly. If we remember in the 2018 version, the shader was somewhat better than the released one, even though it was a bit dark and gloomy. But if you can see the models themselves, they react perfectly to the lighting source. The problem with current day Reforged lighting source, it's what we call a directional light, which is, one light source from whatever, angle of the map. So the problem with this directional light is that these models use BPR texture, which has, normal maps and roughness metallic, what we call RRM files. So when you port or whatever, when you put a Reforged model in modern day in the current world editor, you zoom in from one side, it looks nice. It reads perfectly. It reads the normal map, the bumps, the pores, whatever, the details, the lighting, the reflection. But the moment you rotate the model from behind, the light source, it's ugly. Yeah, I can admit that it's very bumpy, very noisy. Sometimes they look like plastic or like burnt models. So one of the biggest issues is that they should fix the shader, the lighting source. It should not be just one directional light. They should have rim light, which is to just like the portraits. And most importantly, they should finish the optimization, like Luca said. The frame rate, the once you load the map with many models or whatever, you have an army and the enemy has an army. When they clash together, sometimes the frame rate drops, and some aspects, like Luca said, that animated trees also decrease performance. Rain, weather effects, whether it was rain, snow, wind effects, these things also affect performance. So we'd like from Blizzard to optimize and finish this to the point that players can enjoy Reforged, can like the way it should have been. So I would like to, to say to the players that we should tell Blizzard, like we should not tell them that, oh, delete this, Reforged is bad, like, or like it's an embarrassment, but rather it should be fixed. That's the problem. It should be fixed. While the classic players, they get to enjoy what they've done for the past 20 years. Even if they, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about the Classic Plus, as they'd like to call it, as the latest video that has, been surfacing on YouTube with the StarCraft 2 porting. Personally, I have mixed, feelings, but if melee players enjoy that, they can have it, I guess, but not on the expense of focusing on that aspect and entirely alienate, Reforge models or the Reforge scene in general. So basically, that's it from our wish list.
Okay, so basically the toggle feature would be like Diablo 2, so you just press a button and you can switch between the classic and the Reforged rather than having to go to the menu prior to playing the game, because once you're in the game you're stuck in it one way or the other. You can't change Reforged graphics on and off. So that would obviously be super, super good, and people will be way more warm and welcome to it, because at the moment it's got that kind of clunky feel of, oh, I've managed to click it on, or oh, I've accidentally left it on, or I've vice versa, that kind of deal. So that's fair enough. Optimization in terms of sort of like you say, the lighting, the shaders, it's causing issues, the frame rate drops, like all of this stuff. Definitely Blizzard, I don't know what they did, or obviously it would be a case of what they didn't do, really, finishing off, because as we know, the project got rushed. 2018, they were very excited about it. The interviews, I remember seeing some interviews with Grubby, and the players back to Warcraft were also there, and the devs were there with them, sort of talking through the process. 2019, I went there to that BlizzCon, and it was very much a case of, we hope you'll be happy with what you get sort of deal. It was no longer a kind of, this is what we're doing. There was no sort of re-innovation or innovation on top of, oh, well, you saw what we did last year, you should see, right, what we've done now. We've got this set up, we've got this set. It's almost like they actually took back. So they have to sort of finish the job that they started if they're coming back. That's definitely an issue, because performance and all of that suffers. So I did have actually a point in mind, and I can't remember it off the top of my head right now. Wait for it. It might come to me. Okay, yep, that's it. So going back to this classic or SD Plus or Reforged, right? No, we want to keep Reforged, right? So the whole issue with this SD Plus that people are getting a little bit excited about, as if like Blizzard are they're gonna convince Blizzard to say something. You can just remove Reforged and give us Classic and SD Plus. That's not necessary. For me, when I was watching that through, I simply said, Classic, I prefer personally, and all you need to do, like, I can play the game as it is. I don't care. It's absolutely perfect for me in that regard. But if you were going to just sharpen it up, take the textures, because you can clearly see textures in Classic if you look close enough. Some models more than others. Priestess of the Moon, I'm looking at you. But certain ones more than others. They can definitely be just brought up to, I don't know what you would call the equivalent, but like 1920 times 1080. Like it feels like the resolution's like stuck at 480p or something. It could be brought up to 1080p, and that's for Classic. And then Reforged is still there, and Blizzard come back and they finish it. So you have Classic. You don't need this SD Plus that's in between, or you can get rid of that. Just sharpen the graphics on Classic if you're going to do anything to Classic. That's literally all you need to do. Just sharpen those graphics, and then obviously have Reforged as a way to sort of tell these narrative stories once they've got the optimization set up. So for me personally, that's the debate in regards to Classic. I don't know. I mean, you guys have obviously mentioned your thoughts in terms of like how you felt about SD Plus and community sort of rallying behind this now. It's like, I don't know if this is just part more of the backlash. We have to find out in this news with Blizzard. But yeah, those are those parts. So let's talk about Hive Workshop a bit more, shall we? Sort of like their modern community. Like, is there a specific page? So if I brought up like a Hive Workshop right now, where would I go to look for like Reforged in particular? Sort of like find out information about it. Would you say?
So let us watch with you. So
Yeah.
just quickly.
So I'm on the page.
You can scroll up, and this
Yep.
is for the followers. As you can see, the above, you have maps, models, skins. What the Hive Workshop staff has done, they made an amazing thing to cater both for the Reforged players and the Classic players. So you have two options. That's the best balance that they've done, and I'm very thankful that we've played a part. We worked back and forth with Raleigh and Arcane. Shout outs to them, the owners of Hive Workshop. We gave them solutions. We've gave them suggestions how to cater for both teams, how to for the melee aspect. You can see that there's Reforged HD, this entire page like dedicated. There's even a sub page, as you can see, fixed original Reforged models. Can you scroll up just a bit?
Yeah, I've got that there.
Okay, so this subsection, this is a very interesting section that during the beta there were models that had animation, working animation that was removed post release. We have no idea why they did that. So the players or the modders, they took it upon themselves. They had beta copies, if I remember correctly. And what they did is that they found these models, they tweaked them up again, and they released them back to the community. So instead of like you having a broken model, for example, they will tell you, hey, look, here's the original Reforged model that was fully animated, fully working, and there you go. You can replace it with the current broken version. And that's just one in a million example of what the Hive community people have done for Reforged. We're doing our best to keep it alive, but not just keeping it alive, but also fixing it to the best of our abilities. So
Well,
let
one
the
point
people's
I just want to make. Sorry for cutting you off a little bit there, but
no, absolutely.
looking at the
Absolutely. Go ahead.
smoothness of the animations, like that is one of the things that really I think caused the biggest backlash of Reforged and made it harder for people to get behind it. I mean, well, one of the major issues is there's still this kind of soulless look that it has,
Yes,
but
I
obviously
agree. With
that
this,
can
I
be
agree.
worked on. But generally speaking, like you can see how smooth this looks, and that helps to sell the character a lot more and get behind it. Because for me, when I was like dealing with like the characters moving, it felt like there was like this almost lag or delay, and it's like it's unsettling in your brain. But watching this, you can see that the character can move fine. It's just the optimization. So
Exactly.
I don't know if you want to continue from where you were, or perhaps if you just like how do they fix like the soulless look? Because I think that's another thing that puts people off. Is the original classic stuff? Characters are, they're shouting their face off basically every time they talk. They're moving their mouth a lot. They're moving their head. Like if I just go like this, it's like if a grunt is like, yes, I can do that sort of thing. They're really animated. They're really moving. But in Reforged, the biggest thing is, yes, I can do that. They're just like almost
Yes.
a little bit of eye movement, and maybe the mouth moves a tiny bit. So
This
how
is
do they?
because the portrait are missing animations. Basically, you have only the Delta system in Reforged. In Classic, you have an animation where the mouth moves, okay, mimicking the some kind of facial expression. It's very, very. it's fun, it's blocky, but it's fun. I must say I loved it when I was a child. Okay, especially Tichondrius, this strange movement he always did. It was very very fun. The problem in Reforged is that you have on the system, which is face FX, which makes you move the mouth, move your eyes, and set up the face in order to make an expression. But to make an expression, you need to set a specific commands that are only compatible within cinematics. You cannot do that for portrait animations, but just for cinematics. And on top of that, you should have animation. Basically, you should say, okay, move your head, and while you move your head, you also move your mouse. And the two are not the same animation. Two animations overlapping. This is how it's done in StarCraft 2, okay? Which uses the exact same system. Difference is, in StarCraft 2, it's done completed. It's a completed work. In Reforged, it was done, it was prepared. It's like you have the entire fucking house built from the ground up, and then you have no roof. Okay, so stop, now we stop. And they didn't add the animations for all the portrait movements that will make them alive. But it's not that they cannot be alive. Also, there is another problem with the portraits, and it's the light. The same as Shadi was telling before, you have usually in a PBR context, you have two of three things. You have a directional light, a rim light, and usually environmental reflection. In modern games, if you take Unreal Engine 5, modern AAA games, you have dynamic plus baked reflections. You have usually a set of rim lights or ambient lights, depending on how big they are, where they are. And then you have always the directional light, which is usually connected with the skybox, and it represents the sun. In Reforged, you have a single reflection map, which is built inside the model. So the model has a skybox, which is not dependent on the map you're playing on, which plays reflections. And of course, that means the reflections in some environment they fit, in some environment they don't fit. And then you have no built-in support for rim lights. It's not true that you cannot add rim lights, because all Reforged maps, if you remember, when you played Reforged, there was some cinematics where people have black faces. Why these black elves? Why Uther is black in this cinematic? This is because of the problem Shadi was talking about. Recently, I've been studying on it, and I saw that it's possible to actually add a rim light. But you have to add the rim light manually using a text file, because there is no built-in support. And I must say the results are not always predictable. You have to do a lot of trial and error to make it work. But you can solve a lot of the lighting issue using Reforged tools. But you have to do a lot of workarounds. Of course, this workaround could also be done for melee, actually. But there is need for people to stay there and work and try and say what looks better. And for the portrait, it's the same. You have this light that is not that good. You have always this greenish light, which creates this strange outline, strange green outline around the portraits, which not feel natural. Look at StarCraft 2 portraits; they are done in the same exact way, but the lighting works. It's because the lighting system is not finished. Okay, this is the problem, basically. If they fix the lighting system, I think that a lot of also the melee problems, we cannot see the units, will fix itself. And beside that, I would like to add one thing, which I want really to share this thing. A lot of people told me that when playing Re-Reforged, they could appreciate the graphics, and they didn't find the units out of place with respect to the environment. Okay? And some asked me, how is it possible that I can easily recognize units inside Re-Reforged maps, but not in the base game? And the reason is just that the terrain was built for that graphics. You cannot port directly the terrain built for Classic in Reforged. It doesn't look good. It looks bad. But if you make the terrain for Reforged, then magically start to look good. And also the units, except some wired units like the Paladin of the Death Knight, which are actually quite bad. Okay, there are bad units, I must say it's true. Start to look good. And it feels feels okay. You can recognize the units much better. I'm playing my maps. I beta test them a lot, and I must say I never ever had any issue recognizing units, even in the most chaotic moments. And no one told me, even in the most hard map, that they could not recognize units. This is something nobody told me. I mean, of course, Classic is much blocky and they pop out much more, but this is just because they are not, and they are more colorful. But the colorfulness is because they are not PBR, so they are colored polygons there, and the polygons have that color no matter what is the lighting. Okay, basically. And this is not so good in high definition models, even less high definition. This does not hold true even for Heroes of the Storm graphics, which is a more cartoony style, which is very, very good. And it's not like Classic, okay? Nothing pops out like Classic because it's just an old way to do stuff. Just to mention this, okay? Because I think that if we start making some melee maps specifically made with the Reforged terrain in mind, they will be much more easier to play also for melee players. Unless you are a pro, but how many pro are there? Okay. It's not that everyone is a pro.
Okay, so
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead.
no,
Continue.
no.
I
You
can
got a
add
point to
later.
add to that. That's fine. Go ahead. That's good.
So, regarding, I would like to add over Luca's points regarding the soullessness of the facial expressions. That's the result of sadly not finishing the face effects program. Just like what he said that in StarCraft 2 it was done, and the portraits animate beautifully. They have the right expressions, they have emotions, they have animation. But in, like we saw in Reforged, you just see the head and then just lips moving. No expression, no nothing. What we found out, I think it was Luca who found it, and he told us about it, is that in the files of the face effects, there are blueprints for the facial emotions. So the blueprints of the facial emotions are there, but I don't know what happened, that they're not finished maybe, or they're not activated. So at some point, there was supposed to be a fully working face effects animation with the right emotions, screaming, angry, happy. But sadly, like you saw, is that, like I said over and over, the problem with Reforge is not finished. And the terrain thing, I very much agree with it. Is that when they changed the terrain with a toggle from Classic to Reforged, the developers did not put in mind that the terrain that was made 20 years ago, it might not coexist with the HD units. That's why you can see a disparity, between the HD models and the HDified terrain, so to
Yeah.
speak. That's a very good point by Lucas, that the HDified terrain is the biggest problem rather than the units themselves. That's why when I played Re-Reforged or when we play CSW, you can notice that we put respect to have this perfect balance between the models themselves and the terrain to coexist together. So when the general feeling, yeah, that's Reforged. Like when the first impression, when you see that map, you say in your mind, yeah, that's Reforged aesthetic. It's not like an all blocky or like clashing in terms of visibility, readability, silhouettes. So yes, there is hope if hopefully Blizzard decided to listen to us and actually build a bridge, a connection, reach out to us, reach out to the Hive Workshop, and talk to us, to help us. We can help them to give them suggestions, give them tips here and there, how to fix this, how to fix that. So Reforged is salvageable. The only thing they need is just to listen to us, and that's basically it.
So, what would you say is the best way for them to contact you? Just say, for argument's sake, in a magical world, they're listening to this or they watch this when it goes onto YouTube. Where would they go to find you?
We're available on Discord, on YouTube, on Twitter. We're easily reachable. Even Luca himself also is easily reachable. They can build a connection. They've done it once when they were like in the past when they were starting doing Reforged. I don't know if the community knows this, But back then, when Reforged was still under the wraps, the team reached out to the Hive Community Workshop. So back then, Blizzard actually cared about the community,
They know
and they
then.
reached out to the Hive Workshop community and took notes, tips, suggestions. So there was back and forth between developers and the modding community itself. And this is what we aim for to get back again to come back to us, talk to us. We know what are the problems. You don't need just to brainstorm and get confused and hit brick walls. No, we already, all of us have lists of what is fundamentally a problem for this game and what is the possible solution to fix it. Just reach out to us. That's it. Simple as that. As for the melee community, maybe, I don't know, like the Warcraft champion or Grubby, these guys, I'm pretty sure that they have their own wish list of how to make the melee scene or esports playable again, and that is their right. So Blizzard should do a two-way communication. Reach out to them, but also reach out to us. Don't alienate one group over the other. And that's it.
Yeah. So, did you have anything to add on that, Luca? Otherwise, I'll just move on to another subject in a moment.
No, about that, no. He said everything that was required to say, and I already talked really a lot.
Okay, fair enough. So, yeah, let's move on to the melee aspect now. So, for me, the biggest issue, really, I think in general, I suppose if I was to generalize, would be the over detail of the Reforged models, which might make them harder to transition into melee esports viewership. Like, put it that way, I think a lot of the struggles that people have is they can't identify like the silhouettes and such with Reforged. So go into the sort of classic versus Reforged again, bringing that old subject out. I can't sort of help it, but one of the things that I found, I think Reforged, it works so well from the custom campaign aspect and customs because you can build a narrative, a story, an environment, a world, essentially. With Melee, it's more about sort of quick decisions. Really, when like sometimes the highest level players in like, I don't know, a CSGO or these first person shooters, they'll put their graphics down to like the most bare bones basic imaginable thing just so they can
Yes.
identify like that one pixel. So as we know, Reforged, they brought in a heck of a lot of polygons each model because we saw as the leaks came through, in quotation marks, from Wowhead and whatnot, or Hive Workshop, they would show off the models and you go, wow, these models are so incredibly detailed, they're so different, they're so vibrant, and they just got so much going on. And it was really cool to see, and I was like excited. But one of the things that I think gets a little bit lost is it feels like those models aren't strictly based on the classic models. And that's where I think the disparity is there between Classic and Reforged. Like you can, make it work for Melee potentially, but to really bridge that gap, the Priest of the Moon doesn't really look like the Priest of the Moon for Classic versus Reforged. And the Death Knight, again, for example, he just looks so heavily armored. He's got every bit of armor and chainmail and all this coming off, the swords. Like, you can't identify quickly in a battle what the heck is going on, as has been tested, from my own personal experience and such, playing in Melee. Like, the frame rate issues and all that were another big issue, but do you think there would be... do you think it would work if Blizzard took the base models, not the campaign models or anything like that, but the ones that are just used for Melee and made them closer to Classic? So would that be a potential?
I'll take this one. I think I have a good answer for that. Are you familiar with the Quake Champions? The first person shooter,
Yeah.
the famous game. So that game and many other games for that matter, they have a nice feature, which is skin packs. So there is hope if Blizzard decided to do that. Instead of deleting,
right.
why delete something like that costs a lot of money and then just simply delete it? Even deleting it would take a lot of logistics. which I doubt that Blizzard would go that far, to spend money to delete stuff and destroy stuff. So one of the possible solutions for this is that they make let's say, a classic skin pack for the milicy, like better fidelity, better like the same Reforged models, but they can be tweaked around, simplify their armor, simplify their colors, but same thing, same silhouette, but simplified details. And I think that's just speculation. I would believe that the melee community would find that welcoming, if they did that right, the skin packs. I think they've done it with StarCraft as well, StarCraft 2. So if Blizzard decided at some point that we might fix the readability issue, they could go for skin packs that are in respect to the original classic models. So yeah, I think that's one of the best solutions for the time being, at least.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually a really good answer. That's very easily deals with the solution, because I'm like thinking, oh, would they need to take all the models and just sort of like bring them back down to grounded reality a little bit more for the sake of the melee audience understanding? But not necessarily. If they had where Melee Ladder uses the, in quotation marks, classic skin pack, so it's reforged models, but they're sort of based off the classic versions, then that could sell the Melee audience and make it much better. So let's say we get optimization, frame rate issues, no desyncs. Like, that's another big concern, those ones for the Melee. They don't want to, you don't want to be like high level gameplay, 300 APM, but you're at 20 FPS or anything like that. Like, it's so important to have very smooth gameplay. And as we saw, I showed off in the Hive Workshop, like, you can find out all the Reforged stuff, how smooth that animation can actually be. Like, I was a bit surprised, to be honest, when I saw that. I was like, oh, wow, actually can be that smooth. So that's a really good sign. So classic, very good answer. Classic skin pack would solve the Reforged issue. That way we don't have to have this, oh, I don't know, like if we have to get Blizzard back on board for Warcraft 3, we just got to remove Reforged and only just do Classic. It doesn't have to be that. Like, we can have the best of both worlds. So that's
exactly. It shouldn't be black and white. There's always good points here and there. So to satisfy everyone, this is the goal here is always podcasts or whatever. The goal is to satisfy everyone. We don't want to satisfy one group over the expense of the other. We are both fans of this game, and that's the whole point. Each member, chooses to play what he loves. You, for example, you love custom maps, custom games or one-on-one, and others play campaigns, others play just for the esports. And the point here is that we should not put the wish list of one group or the other. We want you and us and the others to be all of us satisfied, so we can keep this game going. It's been going for 20 years, and we want to keep it going, for maybe hopefully for another 20 years, just like they said in the original announcement. They said, we want this game to be introduced to the newer generation. Then do it. You claim that, then do it. Go ahead. And we're here with you, all of us, the modding community, or the Warcraft 3 community. We're with you. Just get the initiative and start fixing it, and we will be with you all the way.
All right. So just to quickly show off on the screen here, these are the Lemon Sky concepts for Warcraft 3. So it really does show, like, these were so cool to see. They were taking into account like the classic models and then bringing them up to Reforged. So somewhere along the way, I felt like there was a slight disparity how they sort of translated those graphics and onto the models for Reforged. So we get the classic skin pack, because look, Arthur's here. It's just like crazy detail, and that's fine for like a custom campaign. So I can take the time to absorb all the information, etc., etc. But these look so good, and it's just incredible. Like, they were putting this effort in, and it just seems like such a shame, sort of almost wasted potential. So if we were to talk about one more thing, or at least from my perspective, and any of you guys got anything else to add, that's fair enough. If we were to take Reforged again like fixes, not just talking about graphics per se, but the functionality of the actual client and the systems. So what would you like them to do? So for a quick example, smoother loading screen, all of this business, custom campaigns, etc. Like the menu being like functional and not being this kind of weird lag to it and all that business. So anything in regards to sort of like the Reforged engine, etc.
Well, custom campaigns for sure. This is mandatory. I mean, I think if Reforged shipped with custom campaigns, there would have been much less backslash about it. A lot of people say about the graphics, yes, but most of people are not upset about the graphics, but more about the absence of features that are actually needed by the community. Because I want to enjoy a custom campaign, even on classic graphics. Okay, so the old classic graphics, I cannot anymore. This is something that is not so good, not good at all. Then there are a lot of bugs. For instance, you cannot have a custom loading screen. Okay, yes, you can have a custom loading screen, but you cannot apply a text on it. Okay, so you have to basically embed the text into the image, and this is very, very problematic if you want to translate that text, because
Exactly. Yeah, we have that problem too.
Reforge actually gave us an incredible ability to translate stuff inside the maps. If you play Re-Reforged and you want to play Re-Reforged in German, you can just set your game in German, launch the maps, and it will play in German. Because they add this functionality to the word editor. Basically, you can insert all the translations inside the word editor files. Of course, and this also applies to models. So, for example, you could have models specific for a certain region, for example, China. And this is something that is not compatible with loading screen, with custom loading screen, because of course you have to make different images for each language with the text in that language embedded in each image. Is very, very cumbersome, and a lot of space, a lot of megabytes are going to be wasted. Stuff like that. There are a lot of small problems. For example, the entire save load system is broken. You cannot load when a music theme is playing. Playing custom music lists is broken. You have to resort to clunky workarounds. You cannot load the map where you have defined custom user interface unless you redefine the custom user interface. And in some cases, if you overwrite some kind of default game files, for example, to show the codec system of Re-Reforged, if you use the codec system and load the map from the menu, it will not initialize the file that are required in order to overwrite the default game UI, and so you cannot use the codecs correctly unless you start the map. So the initialization take place, and then you load the map. There are a lot of these bugs. These are much more important than graphics. I mean, okay, graphics is important. We are looking, but graphics is not. And so long you have classics, so long you have Reforged, and they are kept as separate option, you are fine with graphics. Okay, you can have optimization, upscaling, skins, all awesome stuff, but it's not mandatory. Okay, good stuff, but not mandatory. These bugs and the absence of custom campaigns, like the absence of ladder, these are not optional good stuff. These are mandatory things that we really, really need. Okay, I think as a community, I personally don't need ladder, but I know a lot of people need ladder. They want to play ladder. Or an integrated system with Warcraft III Champion at least. So this is something I think we all should very, very much ask for. And we need the engine to be finished, polished, optimized, and without major bugs. And then we can add all the additional content to improve the melee experience, improve the story experience, and improve the purest classic experience. Of course, it's a lot of work, so we need to decide what's most important, because I have the feeling that they are not going to do so much work for us. Just a feeling. I mean, a small little.
I don't know
feeling.
what gives you that indication.
Well, one can only hope, I know that sometimes someone has a fool's hope, like they like to say, but if they decided, like I said earlier, if they decided to move forward, just take the initiative. We're here and we're ready, to help them out to fix this game and move forward. I forgot to mention one thing that you asked about the models themselves, the aesthetic. Um, my friend and teammate Baroque, he said a good point is that there's a 20 years period between Reforged, almost 20 years, and Warcraft 2, and a lot of aesthetic has changed. That could be one of the reasons why many players were somewhat confused about the new models. They would say, "Yeah, this doesn't look like a grunt from Warcraft 3. No, that doesn't look like Cenarius or Keeper of the Grove." Uh, the answer to this, it is not Lemon Sky problem. It's not their fault that they made their own thing, but it's what the current. If you guys notice the latest concept arts or World of Warcraft, you could definitely see the elements of World of Warcraft on many of Reforged models. That explains why that could explain the confusion of the Warcraft 3 players not recognizing the silhouettes and the aesthetic of the units, because most of it was taken directly from World of Warcraft. So it's not really exactly the fault of Lemon Sky. It's the art direction that
Yeah.
was given to them by Blizzard, and they've done that, by the book. They gave them they told them this is what you need, this is what needs to be done, go for it. So, like I said, to fix that, skin packs. That's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Uh, okay, so I'll bring up another topic. Although we gotta, there's only so much we can expect from Blizzard. But let's just say we live in a hypothetical world where Blizzard are like fully on board with actually properly fixing Warcraft 3, and perhaps, if we're good, giving us some extra features. Like, what would you like to see as an extra feature? I'll give one little example. You mentioned the skin packs. I think that's an awesome idea. So then that made me think in my head, with your Chronicles of the Second War, you got those voice packs. Like I noticed you do those videos where you'll show
The
off
dwarves, yeah, we
the
made the whole.
dwarfs, etc.
If
So
it's okay, I
wouldn't
can
that be
tell
cool?
your. If it's okay, I can tell the followers that we made an entire dwarven pack, 3 clans, and fully with voice acts. So if you guys want to check it out, check it out. So that's one of examples of what can be done as a community. So that's it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So like if they fixed up the client UI, I suppose, of the menu, etc. Like if there was like a feature, like you have the custom campaigns feature, there'd be obviously a button for that, and then it would be almost good if they had a way where they could advertise certain projects. So kind of a bit the way Hive Workshop do, where you would almost be able to click on Chronicles of the Second War, and then it would pull up where you would get the packs for it, etc., etc. Or the same for Reforged, and it feels like they could also do that with the audio packs. So it's like, oh, user made models or user made, like almost as if you could sort of download these models and implement them into the game, and it was easy to do, like not like you've got to change a whole bunch of files, etc., to make it work. Blizzard just sort of made it so it could be integrated. You download a custom map, then you can play that custom map. You could download the skin pack that was created by someone on Hive Workshop, etc., for the model. That I want to have a female pit lord. Someone created a female pit lord. I can put that in there. Obviously within reason, because the hardest bit would be then how would that look on the enemy player's screen? I suppose that it could still just show off a normal pit lord for them, but for you it would look different. Balance
Yeah,
wise, it would have. Sorry.
um, yeah. That you made a very good question here. I think that was also a problem with World of Warcraft skin packs. Some people used to change the client, but that's a
Yes.
bannable offense. You
Yes.
could get banned for that because Blizzard was strictly against, making custom skins for World of Warcraft. But for Warcraft 3, I think the arcade system that's used in StarCraft 2 could be a similar, similar design for it. That if you want to play that certain custom map, let's say you have a dwarven a dwarven-based melee map. Okay, it has fully integrated UI, voice acted buildings, unit, everything. The simple thing is that if you want to play that map, the other player has to download that map as well. So it's to be balanced, because it wouldn't make sense that if you play as dwarves and the enemy player sees like normal human, it breaks immersion. He
Yeah.
would get confused, like, why are you sending those weird units, even though that weird unit to you, the player, is like a certain dwarven unit. Like, you use that unit for something, but the enemy player would see like a different unit, and then he would be confused, like, what is that a stupid player that would send me a support unit to attack my base?
Yeah.
Just that's the disparity.
The
So they
visual
have,
one is the hardest one to implement. Like, again, I was just thinking
yes,
about how that would work in melee. It could be exploited. An audio pack couldn't necessarily be exploited because you're just hearing the voices of the characters, for example. So if you downloaded a voice pack for a human where it makes them sound different, that's just
yes.
going to be for you. That's not going to affect the other player or anything like that. So
No, 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 no,
visually can't
no.
be done, but audibly that could be done. So that's any other things you guys might want to see added potentially.
For me, at least, one of my wish lists is that they improve the world editor, because, like I said, our team member Cam, he used to work at Blizzard. He told us that they had many amazing plans for the world editor back in the day. So it was a very ambitious project. One of those features, if I remember correctly, was the brush of pathing blockers. For example, if people who doesn't know what pathing blockers is, when you make a map, okay, you have, like, let's say you have a square of grass. There's nothing, no trees, no buildings, no nothing. So pathing blockers, like collision. The unit knows that I cannot go over this object. Instead of getting inside the rock, or getting inside the building, or getting inside the tree, there's a thing called pathing blocker. Just like a polygon shape. Just like a brush that tells the unit you cannot go over that place. Now, traditionally, right now, what we're doing with pathing blockers, it is a very, very painful process. And I think Luca would, agree with me here, with just how extremely painful and grueling experience to put pathing blockers to the map that tells the players where not to go. So originally, what they wanted to do to remedy that, they had a brush, like literally, just instead of manually placing there and there and there, and like suck the soul out of you, you would just simply with a brush, brush the map. Yeah, okay, don't go there, don't go there. This rock, you cannot go over it, and that's it.
Basically, it's like in StarCraft 2. In StarCraft 2, you can paint the pathing, while in Warcraft 3, you have to place a special special decoration, like a tree. You basically are placing a tree, but it's not a tree, it has no model, and has a pathing map. Basically, all models have associated a pathing map, and you can remove this pathing map from the model, but when you remove the pathing map from the model, and it's usually done to create beautiful set pieces for the terrain, you need to add these pathing blockers in order to make sure the units do not walk over that place. For example, when you played Re-Reforged Culling, all the walls of the city were actually they had no pathing map. I painted path blockers. I added path blockers in every corner in order to
Look at
prevent your
that.
units from entering there. And you know what's fun about this? Adding a lot of path blockers causes lag. This is fun. This is amazing. I mean, it's something that you would not expect in 2022, but yes, it causes lag. If you add a lot of petting blockers, then your map will lag. Before you played it in the beta version, the Culling report, I was going mad. Why it's lagging so much? Then, oh my god, the pathing blockers. So I optimized the pathing blockers to gain around 20 FPS.
So
20
yeah, that's one of our wish lists. And also, I don't know if that's possible. They also promised us the art tools. That, well, if you
Oh
remember,
wow.
in the announcement, they said there's going to be an accompanying art tool that would let custom map makers, to make their own models with free, like easy to use options,
That'd be
even a guide.
insane. Yeah.
Yes, they planned that. I don't know if they've already done it, but I would presume that if they said that, then it is already done. It's there, but they just decided not to release it. So yeah, if they can give us those art tools, I think the modding community would explode. You would see hundreds of new skins, models. The community would be even more bustling. So hopefully that's one of our wish lists. If they decided to release the art tools and improve the world editor.
Because yes, the community at least the community has been going for 20 years. But when Reforged launched, after a bit while, when it was shown that it was possible to actually work with Reforged graphics and make good stuff, at least from a storytelling standpoint, well, the amount of models and stuff, and even terrain, beautiful landscapes made for Reforged increased drastically. Okay, so it's not dead at all. Actually, it was revitalized a lot. A lot of people. Warcraft 3 has going on for 20 years, but of course, like everything, it slowly dies. I mean, the amount of people playing this game will reduce. I will never, ever come back to Warcraft 3 if it wasn't for the announcement of Reforge. I mean, when I saw the culling of Stratholm demo, I was in love with that. I mean, oh my god, yes, this is amazing, I thought. And I mean, this is something that's not only me. A lot of people, I guess, would have loved to play a new Warcraft 3 made with modern graphics without killing the old one. Killing the old one was a bad choice, but I think the community has been very revitalized by Reforge, and if it was gone well, if it didn't flop like it did, I think the community could have been even bigger, really, really bigger.
Yeah, I mean, well, you talk about the color of the Stratham, like the beauty of the Reforged, and like I say, just generally speaking, especially for a custom campaign perspective, is you can tell that narrative much more efficiently when the models actually can sell you on the place that you're at. Now, the original Calendar Stratham was awesome, done by designer Dave a long time ago, but obviously he's working with the tools that he has, but he doesn't have walls or, massive monuments like they had when we saw in the campaign for Reforged, and obviously doing the Reforged campaign recently, the Calendar Stratham by Luca. So you got these giant sort of massive walls and like the bridge that goes forth. It just sells it a lot more. So I feel like Reforged really does have a lot of potential beyond that point. Like if they just came back to fix it, and you guys obviously you're doing the best you can with what you're working with, but imagine if they finished their job. Yeah, no, just
We hope so.
yeah. So is there
And
any other points you might want to raise?
I'd like to say that it's a nice feeling. Like if I put myself in Luca's shoes, he would say, as he like represented the disappointment of all the community, that okay, this is bad, then I can fix it, and he took it upon himself to fix Warcraft as it should have been, and he's doing a great job for that. Uh, for us, for Chronicles of the Second War, um, I always wanted to be a part of a team that recreates Warcraft 2 because our generation really grew up on that game as well. So I'm very happy that I'm part of a team that full of professionals, passionate players. Um, Hopefully that down the line, when people want to discover Warcraft and why was it an amazing game, they will play our projects, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, and Warcraft 1 down the line. Because as you may know, that we've already put the groundworks, entire script wise, mission wise, everything for Warcraft 1 is already in place. So hopefully that down the line, when people look back at Warcraft, especially the RTS. For us personally, I think World of Warcraft now it's like its own separate universe at this point. Like if you look at Shadowlands or the recent ones, I honestly see it like a very different universe, very different. Where is Warcraft in that? Yeah, I see some familiar characters here and there, but to me, World of Warcraft at its modern iteration, it almost looks nothing like Warcraft, the one we grew up and loved, and attached to. So I am happy to be part of a bigger community that wants to maintain the original Warcraft and present it to the new generation to tell them, look, why we love that game. Look why the way we enjoyed it in our youth. We want you now, the new generation of players, to tell them now it's your turn to enjoy what we enjoyed when we were young. So with the latest graphics and latest technology that we have. So I think that's one of the best goals of my life, to be part of this.
Awesome. What about yourself, Luca? Any other things you'd like to add? Like anything you'd like to see? Anything we haven't like discussed and I haven't given a chance?
Well, I think we discussed about everything basically that we wanted to discuss. But about what Shadi was talking about now, um, I have a lot of people wrote to me that when they played some of my maps, especially the human campaigns map, because of course they are much more important in the eyes of everyone. I think some told me that it was like being children again, okay, and discovering the old tale new. This is something a purist remaster, SD Plus or StarCraft Remastered cannot do. Okay, it's not the same thing. This is something only a remake can do. For example, the Mafia remake. Okay, it's another game with an actually good remake, and this is the feeling they were going for with Reforged. They didn't finish it, but it's not true that we should just botch it and say, okay, this is bad. No, we want a purist remaster. No, we should have also the possibility to have newer generation experience the magic, and to have newer generation, new people at least experience that magic. You cannot have a purist remaster. Okay, this is not working. You can have a purist skin for melee. This is good. This is fine, but not a purist remaster. A remake, I think a remake is what Warcraft 3 really needed. Really, really needed. It's very sad that they didn't finish it. Hopefully, I mean, they will finish at least part of it. I'm really convinced even if they want to invest resources in Reforge, I'm convinced they will never, never do what I'm doing, because it's very time consuming and they will never earn a penny from it. So I don't think they will do this, because they cannot say, okay, we are remaking the campaign, we sell you campaign by campaign. I don't think this would be an actually acceptable policy. But beside that, if they finish at least the engine and try to give all the options to everyone, a lot of people could be brought to this community, because otherwise the community will die. Because it will slowly die. Survive like it did for 20 years. But I mean, isn't it amazing that a game 20 years old can attract new players today? But only a remake can attract new players, I think, not
One year goal.
a purist remaster. This is my opinion. Okay, I know I will be killed in your chat now. I will turn on your chat.
Well, I just want to sort of. I mean, people know I like Classic obviously a lot, but I want to give Reforged a fair shot too. Like, I'm not going to be like so close-minded as to say gone. Like, that's it. That's the only way forward. Like, there's no way forward. Like, there are other options, and as we know, Blizzard had a massive plan for Reforged, and then somewhere down the line, like a year, well, actually years ago now, but I was thinking almost I was in 2020 for a moment. So I was going back to like 2019ish. Obviously, around that area, they got told by bosses, we got to get this out there, and we're cutting your budget and all this. That's just, as a developer at the time, I imagine they were just like, holy shit, okay, well, you don't have a choice. Like, the company that's paying you your bills and stuff like that, you got to get whatever job done you can get done, so the game gets shipped out. Like, Blizzard, the people at the top obviously screwed it up. So it deserves a better shake. It's as simple as that. Reforged didn't get the full shake, and I know there's good potential, not just because I enjoyed like the custom campaign, but also the work that you guys have done. I've seen like the artwork Shadi's been doing and the hard work he's done creating models, etc. It's incredible. Like, and Luca with the imagination that could be put into Reforge. Again, like you said, Luca, they're probably not going to do that because I was just thinking when you were saying, oh, if Blizzard came back, imagine if they put in all those boss fights and stuff like that you put into your campaign and stuff like that. All those little extra touches that make it sort of pop that much more, and they give you this feel of, oh wow, I'm really making progress in this level. Or okay, to complete this level, I've got to get past this massive boss and avoid the flame strikes on the ground and all this kind of stuff like that. That's a lot of added flair that you guys have brought in, and it's great. Like it gives Blizzard at least a chance to say maybe there is a reason to sort of, revisit Reforged and actually do something with it. And we were talking about purist stuff, and Shadi, you were talking about like making Warcraft 1. I just thought it'd be hilarious if you were going to be like purist about that and say, look, guys, I want this to be as much like Warcraft 1 as possible, so it's going to have the same control scheme. Could you imagine doing that?
I mean, if you remember, there
Oh, I
was
do. I remember
a
Warcraft 1.
mod that I was part of. I think more than 13 years ago. It was called Dawn of Chaos. It was a recreation of Warcraft 1. I was briefly part of it back in the day, but the guys just disappeared. They wanted to introduce the road system. They introduced the road system of Warcraft 1. What they've done was an amazing recreation. Warcraft 1 in particular, why is it a bit different from Warcraft 2 and 3? It is very darker, in theme, Originally, when, as you may know, that Blizzard, when they started Warcraft, they kind of went with the Warhammer aesthetic, if you remember.
Hmm.
They with the original game. So, but still, they still have that, Blizzard touch. So in our version, we're gonna pay tribute to some of these aspects. So, but instead of forcing players, for example, to play the game with all road building, no, we might have some quest, throw in a quest there, build this road, for that building, or just the tiny hints of the original game. But in terms of aesthetic, for example, no, we're gonna respect how the original was, but not to the point that it alienates what Warcraft is. I once told Luca, I want players to play all our games. They start with Warcraft 1 and finish Re-Reforged. We don't want them to get disconnected. If they finish CSW, I don't want them to be disconnected from Re-Reforged. No, I want them to finish this and jump to Luca's project. You're gonna see some of our models and contributions to Re-Reforged, because we want players to feel that, yeah, this is a full game, with like Warcraft 1, 2, 3. That's nice. That's the whole pack. So we're gonna respect that, to make players. Each game has its own identity, but at the same time, you will see some, connection, familiar, aspects here and there. So that's the goal here. But in terms of playability, no, we're gonna, the core fundamental core is Warcraft 3 style, because I think, it makes sense. Warcraft 3 play style is what players are used to, so we're gonna stick with that.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I guess if there's nothing else you guys want to discuss, if there is, let me know. But if there's nothing else, then feel free to do some shout outs, mention anyone or any way to contact yourself or who you are, like your projects. We've discussed all of this, but any sign off shout outs, so to speak.
I would just say, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm gonna tell the players, keep on the lookout for updates. We're still working. We're very much, the org campaign is nearing the finish. I'm sure that the way some of our beta testers have been blown by what we've done, I think the community will also fall in love with what we've done. And also keep an eye for Re-Reforged. Luca is almost done with the human campaign, so you guys are gonna be busy for a long time. So keep an eye out for an update. If you have any questions, our discords are always open. Hopefully, we were gonna, finish something by the end of this year.
I will say something more personal instead. It's nice to directly speak with that voice that so often I have heard while playing my campaign and other times. I'm referring to you, Witty. Okay, you're a voice that I heard, a face that I see, but I never spoke to you before today. So this is nice. Just that. Okay, for me, it was just that. And thank you, of course, for this opportunity to speak about that. I hope that whatever the future holds for us and Blizzard have in store for us will prove beneficial to the entire community, regardless of of what it prefers to play, Classic, Reforged, whatever.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys very much for joining me. Glad to discuss the state of Reforged, and hopefully you guys watching also got something out of this. And those watching on YouTube, when this goes up onto YouTube, please make a moment to write down a comment. What it be, any suggestions that you might have for Reforged, or any thoughts or opinions. It's always fun to read those comments, and hopefully you had a good time. So without further ado, thanks everyone for joining us, and all the best, and hopefully we can have a bright future for Reforged. So take care.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Goodbye.
Well, there we go, guys. I'll come out of this, and I will see you whenever I next see you. I'll speak to you whenever I next speak to you. So farewell. Right, there we go. So I guess we'll do the HC speed TD. Shall we? I actually didn't go over these. Just quickly go over these. I actually meant to go over these. Or these were sort of artwork that shows off what Reforged can and has potential to be. As we've seen through the projects of working. Oh, I mean, look at that. Like, that's the Dwarven one. It's incredible, isn't it? Like, that's what I mean. You can't really do that with a classic graphics. So there is definitely good reason for Reforged, especially narrative storytelling, like just showing off the environments. So it gives you a feel. Look at the ability, really sort of like punchy, isn't it? So at some point we were going to discuss this, but it was very impromptu. And oh well, yeah. Again, like the city building is something else, isn't it? With Reforged, it really makes a strong point. So, and that's obviously the Chronicles of the Second War, like the Warcraft 2.5. You got the feel for the environment and the buildings, but obviously within the Warcraft 3 engine. So that's tech tree there for dwarves. So it's a little sneak peek here just before I finish this off, because I forgot to go over this. But yeah, this is the first one we've done where we just sort of have a chat. I mean, that looks incredible, the environment. That kind of reminds me of like Khadgar's story, where before he meets Medivh, I don't know, like he has to deal with orcs and whatnot. So The Last Guardian, that book story. Didn't I voice the peons for this? Peons for what? No, I'm not that I know of. And Storm Knight's working on a list of all the things that can be fixed for Warcraft 3 Reforged. So yeah, there you go. If you enjoyed this, obviously make sure to thumbs up and all that kind of business. It really does help out. And share the video so, we can have the discussion continue beyond this point.